Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zafar, and I'm the outgoing student body president at Roosevelt High School in Des Moines, Iowa. Alongside my co-moderator, senior student council member Ellie Miglin, I'd like to welcome you all to the third session of our Student Council's Youth Voice Forums, a series that aims to connect youth with elected officials, political figures, and community leaders. On Monday, all of you had the unique opportunity to connect with Senator Charles Grassley, the President pro tempore of the United States Senate. Then on Wednesday, we heard from former Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack alongside former First Lady of Iowa, Christy Vilsack. Today, you'll have the ability to engage with Eric Branstad, a current advisor for the Trump Victory Committee and the Iowa director of Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. As part of this Q&A, students will have the opportunity to ask questions about issues that matter to them from their own perspective. Today's Q&A will be the third of 6 that we have scheduled over the next 2 weeks with bipartisan leaders and political visionaries. At our next event at 2:30 p.m. Central Time on Monday, we will be joined by Janice Rottenberg, who served as the former state director for Elizabeth Warren's 2020 Iowa caucus campaign. Next Wednesday, we will hear from Huff Cooksey, the 2018 campaign manager for Kim Reynolds' successful gubernatorial campaign. And next Friday, our final speaker will be Misty Rebick, the former state director for Bernie Sanders' 2020 Iowa caucus campaign. We hope to see you at each event and encourage all of you to continue submitting questions for our upcoming speakers. But now, please allow me to introduce today's guest, Mr. Eric Branstad. Mr. Branstad's last name will no doubt be familiar to many of you, as he is the son of Iowa's former longtime governor and the current U.S. ambassador to China, Terry Branstad. Following his father's footsteps into the realm of civics, Eric Branstad has had experience in Republican politics for many years. In President George W. Bush's 2004 re-election campaign, Mr. Branstad served as a field director and even worked in operations during President Bush's second inauguration. Mr. Branstad would later serve as the finance director for the Republican Party of Iowa and then as the Iowa director of America's Renewable Future, a political organization that seeks to educate Americans about candidates in support of the renewable fuel standard. In 2016, Mr. Branstad was asked by then candidate Donald Trump to serve as the director of his presidential campaign in Iowa, an offer that Mr. Branstad accepted. His efforts would lead to Iowa swinging in Donald Trump's favor by nearly 10 points, after previously going to President Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012. From 2016 to 2018, Mr. Branstad served as a senior White House advisor at the Department of Commerce and now acts as a senior advisor for the Trump Victory Committee in support of the president's re-election effort. Mr. Branstad, all of us at Roosevelt Student Council remain grateful for your time today, and we really appreciate you joining us, sir.
There we go. Fez, thank you so much. What a perfect intro. I apologize too, if you can't see the tennis courts behind me, I happen to be a tennis fanatic. And my oldest daughter is playing right behind us right now. And so I had to bring her out here today. I've got 4 girls, 4 kids at home. So we have such a busy house that I figured this would probably be the quietest.
Sure. Well, nonetheless, we really appreciate your time. And to kick off today's forum, please let me welcome my co-moderator, Senior Student Council member, Ellie Miglin.
Thank you, Fez. Before I ask our first question, I would like to quickly thank today's sponsors, CLE Productions based in Des Moines, Iowa, Sight for Smiles and Smarts, and of course, the Roosevelt Student Council. Mr. Branstad, as Fez explained, you have had a lot of experience working within the political arena. It's clear that the highlight of this was in 2016. To provide insight for our viewers, would you mind sharing what your experience was like as you led President Trump's campaign in Iowa?
Certainly. Well, I'll tell you a little bit at first. So it was April 8th, 2015, when I was working for America's Renewable Future, that I had my first meeting with then Mr. Trump, now President Trump. I actually Googled him before the meeting so I could, have a nice kind of intro to talk to him. So I Googled him, and he had opened up a Trump tennis facility in Virginia with Serena Williams the day before. So I thought, look, this is perfect. So I go into the meeting. I said, Mr. Trump, I happen to be a tennis fanatic. I'm in Virginia all the time. Next time I'm there, I can't wait to try out your new facility. I saw that you opened it up with Serena Williams yesterday. I'm a big fan of Serena. And he says to me, who's your favorite tennis player? And I said, well, John McEnroe was my favorite growing up. It's Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer now. And so, that really got things off on the right foot. And I ended up having a one-on-one meeting with him. This was at the Cub Club in downtown Des Moines at Principal Park. It was a 1-hour meeting, just me and him. He wasn't even headline news then. And I taught him about, what ethanol is, what biofuels are, what value-added agriculture is, all of the things that make Iowa so special. I was able to really get into an hour-long conversation, and he wasn't just listening and he wasn't nodding off. What he was doing is he was engaged and he was asking the questions. If the price of oil goes here, then what happens? And he was really getting a great grasp as far as what we do and who we are. And it was there that I started this relationship with Mr. Trump. And then I got him to come to a Gowrie, Iowa, which is just south of Fort Dodge. And there's an ethanol plant there. There's a Poet plant there. And he came and did a plant tour and spoke there. And he was used to only doing rallies. So this was really kind of out of his norm and something that I really, really appreciated. And so after that, he, at my request, I asked him to come and speak at the Iowa Renewable Fuels Association Summit. This was right before the caucus in January 2016. And he came and spoke there, and I was able to spend some real time with him there. Then the caucus happened. And then I actually wasn't after a job, but I obviously built a great relationship with Mr. Trump. And he asked me that May, they flew me out to New York, and he asked me to be the state director for the general campaign. So I was very honored. And all of a sudden, this was at the end of May in 2016, right after he secured the nomination. Then it was just, I put together a 38-page plan to win Iowa. I presented that to the campaign manager and all of the folks at the convention, at the Republican convention, and got the approval on that plan. And then I was just, it was like drinking from a fire hose. It was, hiring staff, and we had the vice president, or then, Governor Pence, and, then Mr. Trump coming to Iowa, at least once a week, if not more. So we were off to the races. And what I really felt too, to share a story from my first rally, my first rally was in Davenport in July. This was right after the convention, in July 2016. And I woke up early. I was staying at the hotel, right next to where we were staying, or where the rally was. And I went and I started walking the line early in the morning, and I ran into these women, and they were showing me, they were very proud of their jeans because they had put sequins down the sides of their jeans that said Trump. And I'm telling you, I realized right then, and as I talked to everyone in line, and as I've done for every rally I've been a part of, this is a movement. This is a real movement. And I'm a super fan of the president too, and I'll get into that. But I realized that this is a movement. This is something I had never seen before. This is something I didn't see working for the Bush campaign. This is something, and I was used to, I remember my dad at this first rally he was governor at the time, and he was coming in late, and he was to help warm up the crowd before Mr. Trump spoke. He spoke to a standing, people stood the whole time and clapped and cheered the whole time. And when my dad came off the stage, he said he felt like a Beatle in the 1960s for that kind of feeling and that kind of power. Like, it's never been the same. So it was, next thing you know, we were doing all of these events every week, and it was really an amazing experience.
Sure. So before we go to our first audience question, Mr. Branstad, I'm wondering, could you quickly explain, what were some of the key strategies that really won Iowa over? Because obviously Iowa has been classified as a swing state, I think throughout this century, and even before that. But obviously there was such a large swing after supporting President Obama in 2008 and 2012, and then by 10 points it supported President Trump. So what were the key strategies that you think really pulled Iowa the other way?
First of all, in 2016, the map completely changed, and what we really saw, and the numbers and the data certainly show it. The working man, or the working person. I don't mean to, not working man. The working person, especially in Eastern Iowa, that has always been a Democrat stronghold, went Trump, and in every way. My dad had, Lee County, far southeast Iowa. That was a county that he had never won until 2014, and he won it in 2014 by 1,400 votes. The president won it by 2,800 votes. I mean, he was talking to the working person and made America first, and it was that resonated, and we were able to focus on the working person in rural Iowa, and we were able to talk directly to them and share and show exactly what a Trump White House would look like, and they gave us that opportunity, big time.
Sure. Thank you very much. Well, our first audience question today is coming from Winnie. She attends Hoover High School and Central Academy in Des Moines, and she joins us live.
Hi. So my question is, if you were able to go back and change one thing about how you campaigned for Trump, what would it be?
Change one thing. I would see. I mean, being we won so big, not a lot that I would change. But actually, to be honest, there really isn't anything I would change. And the reason I say that is I tried to hire a staff and put together a team that that not only worked tirelessly, but had fun at the same time. And I remember when I asked, I was talking to the campaign, and I wanted to get a Winnebago RV, Winnebago, made in Iowa, where the Brandstads are from, in Forest City, Iowa. I wanted to get an RV for the campaign. And when I asked the campaign, they said, no, they're not going to happen. So what I did was I put together a data sheet for them, and I said, listen, if we all travel together to all these rallies and the events going on, and we have to deliver yard signs and barn signs and all of these things that we had going, if we had an RV, we could do all that, and I wouldn't have to send 5 cars or 6 cars of staff people driving their own car where we're paying them mileage. We would be able to do all of this in the RV. So they ended up saying yes. And if you ask any one of our staff from the 2016 campaign what their favorite part about the campaign was, or what their best memory was, every single one of them will say, and they text me this all the time, it was the RV, because we were all able to do and share everything together. The cries, the smiles, the laughter, we were all able to do that together, traveling together, eating together, working together. And because it was so fast and we were moving so fast, we really used it like a mobile office. And because we won so big, I don't really have much I would necessarily change. But that is certainly one of the highlights of the decision. I was told no several times, but I pushed it so hard, I eventually got it, and it was truly magical. And also part of what was so great about that is all of my team from 2016, we are like family, and we will always be family. And it was that powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question is coming from Pramit, who recently graduated from Valley High School in West Des Moines. He joins us live.
Hi, my name is Pramit, and I was wondering what your thoughts on Mr. Trump's comments on climate change were, because you've obviously worked a lot with renewable energy, as you said before, but Mr. Trump has denied the scientific consensus at times. So I was wondering what your thoughts on that were.
Certainly the president cares about the environment. He cares about climate. His philosophy differs, and my philosophy differs from, I guess, some of the scientists, and but reality is, and I don't have his exact policy stuff, and I don't want to get into too much of White House policy, just because I don't know it like I do the campaign. But he certainly cares. He's not out to destroy anything, and he wants to protect all that we have. But he, like me, believes in in having America first, and certainly with the energy that we are now, we're now exporter of energy, not only an importer. So it's with that that the economy is growing at the clip that it, certainly pre-COVID we were at. From an energy perspective, it was a highlight of the economy and a growing industry.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, sir. Our next question comes from a student named Lincoln from Roosevelt High School in Des Moines, who was unable to ask this question live today. Nonetheless, we were interested to ask you on his behalf in order to see if you view the topic of this question as a significant political issue. It's a policy issue, but I'm interested to see how you view it from a political perspective in terms of how it could play out within the upcoming election. So his question was, do you think America's current struggles with China are a major issue for the United States? And do you think our country should be less reliant upon China? If so, how should we approach this policy?
Well, I'm very fortunate to, when I was serving as senior White House advisor to Secretary Wilbur Ross, I was able to be a leader of the trade mission part of the president's trip to China in 2017, where we signed with major U.S. companies and their Chinese counterparts. We signed $165 billion in deals at the Great Hall of the People in front of both President Xi and President Trump. So I know this space well. We certainly, it is a trying time right now. I was very happy to see the stock market's reaction first thing this morning to China's commitment on holding to their commitment to the Phase 1 deal, which means a lot to Iowa. It means a lot to the United States. It's very important to us. But I think certainly what we've learned and seen through COVID is that we need to, from a pharmaceutical and from a supply chain, we need to focus on making sure that we are not solely dependent on anybody, that we are able to do that ourselves.
So essentially, you're saying that over the coming years or decades, America should become more self-reliant on supplying these resources?
Certainly. And,
Sure.
and the president has been very focused on. In fact, I've been in many meetings with him in the Oval Office, at the White House, on Air Force One, where he says the same thing every time. And most journalists don't cover it, and most vote, but he's in every meeting he says these words. He wants it to be fair and reciprocal.
Mm-hmm.
And those are two things that haven't happened. And he has made, he says in every meeting from day one until now, if it's not fair and reciprocal, there's no deal.
Sure. No, on that note, Mr. Branstad, I'd like to ask this follow-up. As we've seen the coronavirus, as we've seen relations with China emerge as important political issues, what other political issues do you see as the most critical ones ahead of this year's election? And stepping back objectively, which issues do you think could play the biggest role in either deciding a victory or a loss for President Trump this November?
Well, certainly we are in wild times right now. I mean, both following COVID and the travesty of George Floyd. I mean, all of those things are absolutely have shaken me. They've shaken the United States. They've shook Iowans. So between COVID and what we're learning with so much still unknown, and all that we've done is unknown. It'll be 1 week it's this, and the next week it's that. So we're really where we're focused right now is to be able to get people back to work, reopen the economy, and certainly in relation to what's going on now, I think our Iowa leaders and our national leaders and everything that they're doing to address and everything that the president has done, especially in justice reform. He's been very focused on was focused on these problems before this happened, but is really focused on, and all of us are focused on, making sure that it's done right and that we fix our problems of the past.
Sure.
I just wanted to ask a follow-up to that follow-up, and then we can move on to our next question. But for me, what was very fascinating about the Trump campaign was your use of technology. And looking forward, what are some ways that you foresee the campaign adapting to like COVID-19 and using technology to further your mission?
Well, we actually, the Zoom meetings for us, and we call them MAGA meetups, and we've got a lot of different names and different things. And then I'm doing a call tonight. I'm doing a Zoom call tonight with former Notre Dame coach Lou Holtz on a Catholics for Trump call. I'm Catholic, and so we're doing that call tonight at 7 p.m. We've really utilized Zoom, and I love Zoom. This makes it easier, where I can take my daughter to tennis and I can do this with you all at the same time. I mean, how awesome is that? The campaign's really done a great job with that. We have this phone system. I have worked my whole life in politics. As a kid, my dad was elected lieutenant governor when I was 3 years old and was elected governor when I was 7 years old. So, I have spent and I've worked on many campaigns myself. So, a lot of it, when it comes down to it, it's about making phone calls and about doing door knocks. Well, we're not doing the door knocking right now, but we have this new high-tech system called the Red Dialer. And, even in 2016, we had decent technology, but this Red Dialer now automatically calls and automatically records and we can assign notes and all this. It's never been like that before, ever. And certainly too, when we, I remember doing rallies for President Bush back in 2004, and we would have to give out paper tickets and people would have to come and pick them up. And what the campaign has really mastered with the rallies is they're able to get all of the data from all of the folks at the rallies, and we're going to hold their hand all the way to vote when that comes down to it. So there's a lot, and certainly with Facebook is one of Brad Parscale's best talents, and something that he really focused on in the 2016 campaign and has built on that. And the data that we have now far surpasses any other campaign I've ever worked on. And so it's cool to be at that forefront of technology.
Definitely. Okay, perfect. So our next question is coming from Ryan, a recent graduated senior from North Polk High School and Central Academy. He joins us live.
Hey, Ryan.
Hi. So, in response to growing numbers of active registered Democrats in Iowa, the Trump campaign has begun to air television ads here. How likely do you find the possibility of Trump losing Iowa in 2020, and how would you prevent Iowa from flipping if you were the campaign manager this year for Iowa?
I'm not, to be completely honest, I'm not at all worried about losing Iowa this year, but we are running the campaign, and we are running as if we're 10 points behind. I mean, we've got the most important thing. My dad always says this. I always say it. The harder you work, the luckier you get. So what this campaign is about, and for me, every campaign is about working harder than everybody else. That's really what wins at the end of the day. So we're doing that. We're working tirelessly. I know I've been with the president on and worked with the president for now years, and I am telling you, there is no harder worker. There's no one that stays up later or works as hard as he does. So I'm confident that because of that hard work, we're going to be successful this November.
And Mr. Branstad, I have a quick follow-up to that. Looking at the political landscape in 2020, what differences do you see between the Iowa of 2016 and the Iowa of 2020? I know you said you're more confident that the president will win Iowa this time around, but is there any new messaging that the campaign is maybe concentrating on in Iowa, or any new demographics or groups that the campaign is trying to pick up in this state?
We've got, fortunately, with the reelect, we have a bigger team, and we're able to do, we can do quite a bit more now than we could then. I would say, the message is very similar to 2016. It is to the hardworking Iowans, letting them know that they are first and that we're focused on their jobs and making sure that they keep their jobs and that their wages grow, and that we're focused on the worker. And that hasn't changed from 2016. And we're only working that much harder in 2020, making sure that the worker knows, those that are, working for their families, are working for a better life, for a better job. And we have, since 2016, as we saw our, pre-COVID, we saw the unemployment at the lowest it has been in my lifetime. I know in your lifetimes. So this is something that the president is completely focused on. We are continuing that same message. And that, to me, is the most important message, is making sure that folks can feed their family, take care of their family, and that they can grow.
Great.
Sorry about that. Sorry. Next, we're going to hear from Kyle. He's a rising senior at Roosevelt High School.
Hello. You have been aligned with President Trump since his initial campaign. Nonetheless, what is one position that you disagree with, or that you disagree with the president on?
That is a good question. I will say, this is kind of a fun one, but I don't eat fast food, and he likes the occasional McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I definitely disagree with him on those kind of choices. I don't want to get too far into any real policy stuff. I don't know if who's watching, but
sure.
But that's I'm a super healthy eater, try to live a super healthy lifestyle. And, that's what not that he doesn't, but I just, it's our difference.
For sure. So we have a couple of additional questions for you. So as the last 4 years have shown, and this kind of relates to sort of what you were talking about, but less about like negative and positive. But the realm of politics always appears to be shifting. What upcoming changes do you foresee within the political arena? And can you name one that might excite you and another that might concern you?
That's a tough one. So I would say as far as exciting goes, you know, I'm really looking forward to, I mean, what life post COVID's like. You know, as we all know, you know, people say the new normal. Well, you know, what is the new normal? Is that going to change the way that we vote? What I do love about, you know, what has happened is that, you know, you know, we've all, you know, are washing our hands more. Our hygiene's that much better. You know, I've always been a big handshaker and a big hugger, and I miss both those. But by not doing those, you know, does that mean I might not get the colds and, you know, maybe a virus, you know, this year that I have in years past? So, you know, it's certain, and then certainly from, you know, on down the line, you know, more so than just health, you know, how, you know, telemedicine, and those are going to be the really big changes, I think. And I think much needed changes, because it's, I think it was so antiquated, and we're able to move into more technological and better spots. So I would say that as far as exciting goes, especially with the healthcare piece. And then I would say as far as challenging goes, and, you know, something, you know, I'll put it to what's going on right now. I mean, we all know and understand, you know, that the heartache and travesty and everything that what happened in Minneapolis, and how those policemen deserve justice. But now it's about, and there's so many strong, hard feelings on, you know, how best to bring America back together, and start to calm some of this anger, and this hate that is that's happening. And, you know, certainly the peaceful protests have been, you know, in Iowa and throughout, have been absolutely great. You know, but it's some of that looting and rioting, when my friend in Valley Junction was begging them on Facebook, please do not destroy my business. Please do not destroy it, because I've barely been able to survive through the COVID months. And if you break my windows and destroy my business, I'm going to go bankrupt. I'm going to be done. And it's those kind of things that, you know, that is the real challenge, and that we all really have to come together and work together.
And on that note, I know that you know, you addressed the difficulty with race relations that we've seen in recent weeks. Senator McConnell referred in a press conference about a week ago as America's original sin of slavery, and it's really what has you know, created this tension among race relations, you know, across our nation's history. You know, on the topic of race, I think we've seen that you know, you referenced workers in Eastern Iowa, for example, as being a stronghold for Democrats. I think it appears that in the last few decades, minority communities across the United States also tend to gravitate toward Democrats as another kind of stronghold. What do you think that Republicans, and more specifically President Trump, ahead of this year's election, what kind of messaging needs to come from the Republican Party in order to attract more minority voters? And also, I'd add on to that, why do you think there hasn't been as much of a connection in recent cycles?
Well, we have a mainstream media, and we have, you know, liberal Democrats going after I mean, using terms, you know, from day one, from absolute beginning, using race, you know, calling him a racist and things like that. And it's not accurate. It's not true. In fact, it is upsetting to me. What the president, you know, I'm not speaking for the president or the campaign, but what I believe that the president is focused on is he is focused on making their lives better by making sure that they're getting better jobs. He's been working on this justice reform and has made significant progress there, and is continuing to work and make that better. And he's focused on that daily. But the reality is that he's about making them stronger, and doing that through good jobs. And that's also what I believe. You give them a good home and a good job and purpose, and we're all coming together.
Sure.
Great. Okay, I thought he was going to have a follow-up. Perfect. So, what are some things that you think needs to be done to bring Democrats and Republicans together? Like, amidst, like you were talking about with George Floyd's death and other like police brutality instances, this is like an opportunity for, at least in the Iowa legislature, we've seen a lot of unity there to get things done. What are some of your takes on that, and ways that you think going forward we can work together?
Well, that is a great question. And we need to work together because it is as decisive as it's ever been by far in my lifetime. I mean, it used to be where, you know, even if I was working for a campaign, I worked for the Gross for Governor campaign in 2002, and he ran it against Governor Vilsack. And, you know, we could go, I mean, we still could go have dinner with the opposing side and enjoy their company, even though we might have philosophical differences on particular policies and things like that. We were friends. The last several years, the last 10 years, it's gotten further and further and further apart. And so we all, I mean, everyone, Republicans and Democrats need to realize that. And as I tell, you know, all of my girls that, you know, you've got to breathe and you've got to put yourself in the other person's shoes. And no one is evil here, and no one is trying to, I mean, everyone has their best ideas and are trying to move those best ideas forward. And we need a better understanding, and we need to come to that understanding together in order to be successful, because the decisive, I mean, I know this, anything that the president says, the other side is just polar opposite against, even if they don't necessarily mean it. And it goes the same for both sides. I'm not trying to, you know, but it's as decisive and opposing as it's ever been. And so we really need to put ourselves, I mean, starting with ourselves and putting, you know, the other team and the other side and the other person standing in their shoes, and vice versa, and trying to come to some understanding together, and some respect for both sides, and respect of opinion, not just the, you know, all the anger and all the hate, because we're not getting anywhere when we do that.
Definitely.
Mr. Branstad, I wanted to ask as well. So I know that the president's use of Twitter, I think, has been essentially a hallmark of his brand as someone who tries to immerse himself among the people. And I think that a lot of people like that kind of quality of Trump isn't necessarily in his political in the way that he speaks. He's not like a regular politician that I think a lot of people are accustomed to. But then at the same time, I think the president over the last few years has kind of set up a kind of characterization of himself that he tends to hit back. I think that's how he's described himself as well. How does that kind of conflict with that need for people on both sides, you know, particularly leadership on both sides, to start bridging that gap?
Yeah, well, you know, Twitter has been a valuable, you know, tool for the president. And, you know, what I like about the Twitter and our President Trump, is you're hearing, or you're seeing what he feels when he feels it. And he is a New York businessman. He is not a, you know, he's not a politician from, you know, Utah or Iowa, or, you know, some of the folks that we might be more accustomed to, and how they act and how they speak. And that's also what I love from the very beginning. You know, I was getting so tired of the Mitt Romney, you know, John McCain style of, you know, campaigning. What we got a movement, and we got a president who's just straightforward and honest at all times, whether you want to hear it or not. I mean, he's telling you what he feels when he feels it. And I feel that because of the president and Twitter, we know we're closer to any president than we've ever been, because we know exactly what they're thinking and what they're seeing. Does his viewpoint or does his mind maybe change, a week or two after or a day after, probably. But it's really just an outlet of, how he feels when he feels it. And I love it. But I know there's a lot of other Republicans that I talk to that wish, if they could wish one thing about the president, that he would not have to swim.
Mr. Branstad, our next question is going to be from Ryan, who had a follow-up question.
So you've been someone who's worked a lot with the Republican Party over the last couple of years, even going back to George Bush. How do you feel about the changing demographics and voting within key Republican states like Texas and Arizona? For example, one of the recent governor races in Texas was extremely close between Cruz and a Democrat. Or for example, in Arizona, one seat has already been lost to a Democrat. How do you think the Republican Party should counter these trends and Republican strongholds, which are slowly switching to become more purple?
I'm trying to figure that out. Because in 2016, fortunately in 2016, it was in Iowa's favor, in our campaign's favor, because what the map changed is, and you saw, as I described, eastern Iowa and western Wisconsin and eastern Minnesota. The president actually sent me to Wisconsin for the last couple. I went there 7 times over the last couple of months of the 2016 campaign, because because he saw that I was able to bring the unity in Iowa together, and he wanted me to try to do that same thing in Wisconsin. So I spent a lot of time in Wisconsin, and what we realized, and actually what former Governor Tommy Thompson of Wisconsin told me, was, in order for you to win Wisconsin for the president, which hadn't been done since 1984, in order for you to win, you need to turn out Western Wisconsin a lot more than Mitt Romney was able to do in 2012. And so I asked him, well, how do we do that? And he said, you need to do a rally in Minneapolis in order to turn out Western Wisconsin. So we did a rally in Minneapolis the Sunday before Election Day, and before the president flew to Minneapolis, he was in Sioux City first. And so I was able to talk to him backstage there, because all of the media was saying, what is this campaign, stupid? How do you does he think he's going to win Minnesota? That's not even on the deal. Well, that wasn't the intention at all. The intention was to turn out Western Wisconsin. And guess what? We won Wisconsin for the first time in 36 years. We won Wisconsin in 32 years. And all of the pundits couldn't believe what we did. And that's so looking at those same, that was a trend where it was in our favor. Now, as far as Texas and down in Arizona, they've got different dynamics that I don't understand certainly as well as I do the Midwest and Iowa, but that's something that we are certainly paying close attention to, and we're trying to figure out where and why those changes are happening. And a lot of it, depends on, just the particular candidates themselves too. Having, grown up in a political family and with a politician dad, a lot of it's the candidate, not necessarily the party or any particular trend.
Great. So kind of wrapping up everything that we discussed today, as you mentioned, the Trump campaign has been a movement. It has, and it's definitely reflected in the Republican Party changing who we see it at the state level, as well as you've seen it like throughout your time working with the Bush campaign and onwards. But to wrap it all up, what advice can you offer to students interested in political organizing, especially as things are constantly changing and campaigns are more successful when they have that movement aspect to them?
So I was a political science communications double major in college. And I actually did an internship in Washington, D.C. This was during the Clinton impeachment scandal, Lewinsky scandal in '98. And I was actually wanting to be a journalist. And my internship was with Talk Radio News Service. And I was on the radio each day. I was doing Washington correspondence for radio all over the world. I did BBC, I did all over the country. And certainly because of the scandal and impeachment proceedings going on, we were very popular and very needed. So I was doing that all. So I actually had no intention of going into politics myself or working in politics. In fact, I was trying to stay far away from that because I had grown up with it. But what I realized is when I did DC and I went to college in Kansas City at Rockhurst University, and then I moved to California till I was almost till I was 26 years old. When I came back from California, I was volunteering for Doug Gross, who was running in a primary for governor. And so my biggest recommendation is get out there, like volunteer, make phone calls, help, just learn the system and learn. And it's great getting out and talking to people. And what I've noticed in all of the phone calls using that red dialer that we use for campaign phone calls, what I've noticed during COVID is that people really want to talk. And, they want to share their frustrations or their feelings or their, what they're proud of. And they really want to share that. So I would say, getting out there and volunteering for whoever your organization is or whoever your choice is, go and do that. Be a part of, and get out and talk to people, talk to your friends, go for coffee, focus on that stuff. And certainly, like I said, the secret to the sauce to winning is working hard. That's it. There's no luck. It's all about really working hard and getting out there and talking and getting to know as many people as you can. And that's what wins.
Well, Mr. Branstad, all of us here at Roosevelt Student Council, all the students and adults watching, we're so immensely grateful for your time today. When we first reached out to you, you were completely receptive and really interested in participating, and we really appreciate that because, as we've said with all of our guests so far, it's not every day that we have someone of your stature within the political realm take the time to address students' questions and to provide this kind of insight and advice. And we really appreciate all your help today, and we wish you the best of luck, sir.
Well, I am very impressed with you, and keep it up because you're our next leader, and you all are. And Fez and Ellie, like you guys are the next leaders. So go do it. Go get it.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.